have to have that empathy and the care that you want to give these people. It's not much different in either of these professions. The thing is, as educators, we can make or break a child by the way we treat them, the experiences that we give them in the classroom. They can, just from 1 year or one experience with a teacher that's not good to them, can ruin them for life as far as teachers go. And so, perhaps there's something similar to that in the nursing field. Maybe they feel like this article said earlier. They feel like they're overworked, nobody appreciates them, and they choose to take that out on patients because it gives them a sense of control. That happens in education. A lot of times children are bullied by teachers because the teachers feel like they're in power in that classroom, and they are. They have a significant amount of power in the classroom. We don't necessarily, quote unquote, kill our students. We might kill their love of learning. We might kill their desire to be at school. Depending on what age group we're talking about, there's developmental levels that are significantly impacted depending on what their experience is in the classroom. So, all of those things are very relevant. And I think that in the healthcare field specifically, I think you would also want to make sure that you have professionals going into the field who have been vetted properly, who have a strong mental health foundation, who aren't narcissists. We have this thing called dispositions in our programs, and you can see very early on in a program if you have students who are not cut out for the field. And what I mean by that is, do they have a bad attitude? Do they feel like they can't be taught? They know everything? Do they not follow rules? Even when it's simple rules like dress code, those type of things. Are they constantly complaining about something? Is that the type of personality that you want around children? I don't care what age the child is. I don't care if it's pre-K all the way up to high school. Do you want this person around this group of children who they have great influence over? And that's a disposition issue. We literally have maybe I would say 2 to 3 a year, students where we have disposition meetings. And it's also called success meetings. We want them to become better. We want to point out to them, here's the things that we're concerned about, or here are the things that when you're in field, your cooperating teacher has discussed with us. And we want to give them a success plan. We don't just kick them to the curb. We want to make a difference. Well, if what this article says is true, that there's nurse shortages in the UK and the US that could be cited as the reason for proper checks being overlooked, then that industry, that professional industry, is putting the need to have warm bodies in a place over the quality of people that are in that place. You overlook things that normally you would never overlook because you just don't have people to fill in the gaps. And it's a horrible situation for us to be in the United States, for sure. I know that's happening in education and in the healthcare field. I don't know as much about the UK. This system, the nursing system or the healthcare system over there, is a little bit different than what we have over here. I do know that much. But I would think that there's best practices internationally. And regardless of whether there's a shortage of nurses or educators, I think we need to make sure that we follow what we know to be best practices. If you have someone who's not cut out to be in that field, they need to be cut loose. We typically will counsel them into another field. Social work, is a really popular field to move into. Social work there's tremendous responsibility in that career as well, but you're not dealing with a large group of students at one time. You get that fulfillment being in the service industry, mental health, or just general care, whatever that specialty is that perhaps you go into in social work. But it is totally different than the influence that you have over children in a classroom. So I feel like we should never use the fact that we have a shortage in any of these industries or careers as a reason to accept subpar performance or overlook red flags, because people die. In the healthcare field, people die. In the education field, we have students who begin to fail. We're messing with basically their entire life. If they fail in school, they're not successful in what they're doing. They're not going to get good jobs. They're not going to make a lot of money. I mean, there's a lot of different factors that go into that. But certainly, I think the overarching idea that we should have here is that regardless of whether there's a shortage, you don't take just anybody to fill in these voids. You still have to maintain that level of quality to ensure safety for our children, for our patients, no matter their age. Look at the devastation that these people leave. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And it's not until we have these things happen, they've already happened. These people are dead. And now we're looking at it. Because we have something as severe as someone dying. And people usually say off the cuff, I know you've heard this, someone will say, well, nothing's going to be done about that until somebody dies from it. And then there's going to be a multi-million-dollar lawsuit, and then something will be done. And that is the truth. That's the truth. It typically will take some sort of monetary disciplinary action to cause changes, because money rules the world, right? You don't excuse me. I'm losing my voice today, if you haven't figured that out, because my allergies are kind of out of whack. So my apologies for my voice, and also my coughing. Anyway, so I think that based on everything that we know and looking at these type of cases, we should collectively decide that, yep, there's a shortage in this and this, but we're not going to sacrifice, our quality just to fill in those gaps. I think it just has to be done. Professor Yardley also said that whether healthcare serial killers enter the field in order to kill or fall into it is difficult to say. In other words, there are people who decide to go into the healthcare field because they already have it on their mind that they want to kill somebody. And this is a way to kill someone and get away with it for a long period of time, maybe forever, right? A rare few enter the profession to become angels of death. That's where that term comes from. They say they want to come into the field and, rescue people. Go ahead and get them out of their misery by killing them. Others transform into killers on the job. Ramsland says, Professor Ramsland's study revealed. There are individuals who will have obtained a sense of power and enjoyment from harming people in the past and see opportunities to escalate this behavior in a hospital when they become aware of the access and opportunities that this setting affords. In other words, they are opportunists, right? We know that serial killers can be opportunists, where they don't plan on killing anybody, but if the opportunity arises, they take it, right? Or you have other serial killers who are well thought out, well planned. They know exactly what their options are. They thought through everything. An example of that would be BTK. You know, if he, you know, started to follow someone or got interest in someone and he thoroughly researched their habits. He knew when they were home, he knew when they weren't, he knew if they lived alone, all these things. And he typically would break into the home before that person came home to get a feel of how the layout was of the home, his escape routes, things he could use to his benefit, where he would need to hide in order to ambush the person. So that's a great deal of planning, and that's someone who, regardless of opportunity, they're going to find someone to kill. And you may have people coming into the healthcare field who have that idea, who think, you know, I'm gonna learn this. I'm gonna get the feel of the place. I'm gonna work the graveyard shift or the night shift. Some people call it. We always called it the graveyard shift when my dad worked shift work, because everything's dead. No pun intended, for real. I mean, we just called it that because most of your supervisors weren't there. It was a I would much rather work graveyard than work during the day if I don't want a bunch of administration around. And I've worked in plants when I was going to college. I worked in a couple of plants, and it was always much less stress if you were there in the evening, overnight, because you just didn't feel like you had somebody watching you all the time. And then there are some people, you know, who are okay either way, and they work the day shift. I mean, it's very difficult to work, you know, shift work. I don't know if you've never done that, I would not recommend it. It's very hard on you. But my dad did it for 32 years, I think. So it was, you know, we learned a lot from that experience as well, I'll tell you. So, um, an example of someone who's actually entering into the field um, to become a serial killer or to kill other people would be Beverly Allett, who attempted to kill, or seriously harmed 13 children in her care within an 8-week period in Lincolnshire in 91. Allett had demonstrated particularly controlling and coercive behavior towards an ex-partner before killing children. Most importantly, Yardley said that medical serial killers choose to kill because of the feelings of power and control that it gives them. That is not very different than your, hate to say it this way, but your typical serial killer. They love that sense of power. They love that sense of control. And many of them, that's especially the ones who combine that with a sexual gratification, that's what gets them off. That's what gets them off. And so they have to have that terror. They want to see the terror in that person's eyes and their victim's eyes. And it's disturbing, really, to think that people are in healthcare who have this kind of thought pattern. Yardley says these people have control over life and death. They feel a sense of ownership, possession, and control over their patients. They feel entitled to harm and kill them. And I can see where that would be completely viable, because if you have a caseload for the night and you're assigned to a certain person, they become your responsibility. Same way with children in the classroom. This is my class. I'm responsible for all of these children. And that's a good thing if you have good intentions. It's a bad thing if you have bad intentions. So I suppose in a way they're put in charge of this person's life or death. That's the way they see it. And unfortunately, there's great opportunity in the hospital setting and nursing home setting, let me add. There's a lot of opportunity because you're not really watched. There's not somebody standing over you every time you go